Welcome back. Welcome back to our electronic course where we are getting our head and our hands around the idea of doing ethnographic research. We're spending time together working out about all the different skills we need to do specifically ethnographic research. There are some similarities between ethnographic research and more quantitative research done by sociologists who do surveys. But our specific interest is research that involves this thing called fieldwork. This thing called fieldwork where we are spending time with people. The bread and butter of the methods that we are emphasising in this course are ethnographic research methods. So in the last few lectures, we've followed this format. We've been introducing some concepts. What is research? The research process. For example, the differences between qualitative research and quantitative research. And how do we know that our qualitative research has got sufficient quality? So all of these lectures have followed the format where we have used a graphic, an infographic, a table, some figures to introduce key concepts, important ideas that we have to become familiar with. And these have been followed by a short summary with Xmind pointing you to different resources on the Google Drive. Some of them are videos, some of them are ebooks, some of them are individual articles, and some of them are even readers. Because remember, this primarily is a directed reading course, and because it is an electronic course, all the reading we are directing you to is in electronic form. Okay, so that's just by way of reminder. So today's lecture is going to be talking a bit about the important differences between two types of data, between what we call primary data and secondary data. So this is an exercise in just making sure, this is another exercise in just making sure that we really understand some important concepts correctly. Okay, so let's go to full screen and let's just, using this infographic, let's just begin to remind ourselves about the most important differences between primary data and secondary data. First of all, primary data is collected from first-hand experience. This is the information gathered for the purpose of a particular research project which revolves around asking a specific research question, and because of that research question, because of the place that they're asking that question, a specific research methodology is pursued. This is different from secondary data, which has already been collected. It's been collected for another purpose, and it's being not collected by you, it's been collected by someone else. So the main sources of primary data will depend on the type of research you are doing and the type of methodologies you are pursuing. And so if you are doing an ethnographic study, the most important source will be observations, field notes, a range of interviews, usually starting with broad broad, open questions becoming more and more specific as your coding and your information increases. It will include case studies. Secondary data are previous research, library research, government statistics, census material, web information, and any range of other historical data. In terms of time, primary data is in real time. This is ron. This is absolutely new, something you've done yourself in the last few days, weeks, months and years. This is different from secondary data, which is sometimes current, but often we refer to secondary data published a lot earlier. The other difference is that primary data is specific to the researcher's needs in the researcher's research project. The secondary data, we come across these things and we may be very fortunate in finding information absolutely that fits our research question, but often we have to do with second best. Cost-wise, collecting primary data is expensive, time-consuming, difficult and demanding. Secondary data is none of these. Primary data means that we have a high level of control over the data quality. Now that may mean that the quality of your data is not particularly good, but that is your problem. We do not know the quality of secondary data. This requires training, formation, and critical thinking skills, and an ability to understand standard practices of research and the methods we use to get the right type of information. And that is why it is important that you read the research methodology of scientific articles and monographs. And of course, primary data is very, very time consuming. You have control over primary data. You are the owner of this intellectual property. When people want to use your data, they have to ask permission and or they have to cite you. And because you are not the owner of secondary data, you must cite any and all secondary sources you cite. So I think that's about all, and let's just wrap up with that now. So let's just pause, and we're going to go to the mind map, and we're going to just push you in the direction of further places that you can read more about this important issue, and we may revisit just a few things that we have talked about. So more later about this. Remember to keep watching. Thanks again.